Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's start right away with a big question. What if the biggest barrier to high performance at work isn't talent, isn't strategy, or even time, but the way our brain and energy actually function? How often do you think about that? Yeah, we always talk about it along to-do list. We don't have time for certain conversations and so on. But how often do we think about how our brain and energy actually work and how they impact us in our day-to-day? In leadership today, the pressure to perform has never been higher. We are expected to be focused, strategic, resilient, and constantly on. But many leaders are quietly running on empty, and they are pushing harder, working longer, and wondering why sustainable performance still feels out of reach. My guest today believes we've been looking at performance the wrong way. Alex is a director and founding partner of Next Evolution Performance, a global high-performance coaching business that works with leaders, business owners, and teams to help them achieve more while actually using less effort. Sounds good, doesn't it? Their work blends neuroscience, psychology, and integrated coaching methodologies to help people understand how their brain, behavior, and energy systems really and truly work. Alex has spent more than 20 years coaching leaders and organizations across the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, Dubai, before returning home to New Zealand. And with a background in psychology and applied neuroscience, her work focuses on one simple but powerful idea. When people understand themselves properly, performance becomes both more effective and more sustainable. And in today's conversation, we explore some fascinating questions, including why pushing harder is often the worst strategy for improving performance, how leaders unknowingly create habits that drain their own energy and the energy of their teams, what neuroscience tells us about focus, decision-making, and motivation, and how understanding your own drivers can change the way you lead, work, and live. Alex also shares practical ways leaders can build businesses and careers that don't just perform well today, but remain healthy and sustainable in the long term too. Because high performance shouldn't come at the cost of your health, your relationships, or your ability to enjoy the life you are building. So here's something to reflect on as you listen to today's episode. Are you truly performing at your best, or simply pushing yourself to keep up with a system that was never designed for sustainable success? Have a think about it. Hit the pause button perhaps for a moment. And then let's dive in. Enjoy today's conversation. Alex, I want to say good morning, sitting here with my good morning coffee. But for you, it's like almost good night. Hello, good evening
It's nearly
to you.
good
It's
night.
so wonderful to
Good
have you.
morning. Thank you and good evening. And I have my evening cup of sleepy tea. So you're right. We're in exact opposite places and exact opposite times. But thank you for having me. It's great to see you, Kathleen.
It's great to see you too. And I'm so looking forward to having this conversation. I promise to everybody listening so far, it's going to be more exciting than saying I have my tea and my coffee here. Because today we're talking about psychology, neuroscience, and leadership. And it's so important to understand the connection better and to become more aware of our psychology every single day, in particular when we feel under pressure. So let us know, what's got neuroscience to do with leadership from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question to start with, actually. And funnily enough, not many people ask it. They just say, oh, well, if you're telling us that there's neuroscience to be talked about, then we'll listen. But nobody says why. And maybe because we often start with that, with when we're going into leadership coaching and organizations, the very first thing we talk about is, why would you want to know about leadership, about neuroscience when it comes to leadership? So our biggest pivot point around neuroscience and leadership is to help organizations understand why they do what they do, why humans do what they do. And the best way to understand why we do what we do is to know what's going on in the brain. And the neuroscience has had so many big deep dives into leadership over the last little while. And so it's provided more and more insight to apply the learnings of how the human brain works so that we can understand how to be at our optimal when we're in leadership positions, or actually really when we're doing anything that we want to be doing and that we want to be doing well. But the primary focus for us is utilizing the understanding of the brain and how humans think to help organizations and individuals within organizations be able to do what they do in a really sustainable way. Because otherwise, we tend to be doing it in a way that leads us to repeated burnout and exhaustion and not living our lives fully.
There's so much to unpack in what you just shared already. And I love to be the cynic in the room. And I hope from our pre-chat, you know how much I adore the science around leadership. And I could talk to you about neuroscience literally forever. However, and I bring all my biases into this next question. I'm often observing or working with very busy leaders who say, who's got the time to now take a whole course or a class in neuroscience before I can actually be at my best?
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure and I'm aware there are tools you can build into every day to build that understanding and to become more aware of the better behaviors. And I'm so curious to bring some of these tools in right away at the start of our conversation so that people know, oh, okay, this is something to listen to more, because there are some easy tools and steps I can apply to my day to day.
Yeah. Well, probably the biggest piece that we are spending a lot of time on with people at the moment is understanding this concept of continuous partial attention. And I think even that statement people might hook into or tend to in our workshops and say, oh, I'm already interested, because I would venture to guess almost everybody has a problem with feeling like they are giving continuously partial bits of their attention to things. It is no secret that our focus is getting greatly diminished and that our minds are jumping around a lot more than usual, or than I should say, than previously. We can look at all the reasons for that, technology being the biggest one. But this undeniable experience that we're having, where we have a harder and harder time being able to turn off all these tabs and all these notifications and all of this input into our worlds. Even just sitting in a work environment, now we have open plan offices and all these sorts of things, but is leading us to the most unbelievable cognitive drain, where our brains are losing energy quicker than they have done in the past, and we're struggling to find energy to sustain us through a working day. People are wondering why they're so tired when they've got all these amazing tools in there for productivity at their fingertips. But what we're quietly doing is draining our energy, especially our cognitive energy, the energy that we, as what we call ourselves as knowledge workers, we're not physical workers in most industry or in most business industries, we are knowledge workers, and draining that cognitive energy quietly in the background is a significant problem for us being able to be productive and feel like we can do what we want to do and deliver to the outcomes that we want. So I would say the immediate tools that you have at your disposal is learning how you reduce continuous partial attention to conserve your cognitive energy for where you need it. And we're going with really simple, practical things here, but learning how long you can focus for as an individual before you need to get a little bit of recovery for your brain so that you can keep going. We call that your optimal focus period. And one of the tools we work with clients on quite significantly is helping them through a tool that we have to understand what is their optimal amount of focus before they require a little bit of recovery so they can keep going. Whereas most of us just push through that barrier until we think we're done with the task with
Yeah.
all these interruptions and distractions. And by the time we're finished, we're exhausted. So really, really starting simple with finding ways in which we can maintain focus, reduce distraction is probably the quickest win people can have.
That resonates so strongly. And as a facilitator, we have this rule, quote unquote, that after 90 minutes, there's got to be a break. And from the sounds of it, it might differ from person to person. There isn't this one size fits all.
Definitely.
Have you seen a pattern in those leaders you are supporting with regards to what is this optimal focus point?
Well, that's a good question. Also, there's less of a pattern and more of understanding that as individuals, we all sit on a spectrum, just like everything in life. So some people, their optimal focus is as short as 10 or 15 minutes. So 10 or 15 minutes before the mind starts to drift. And then down the other end of the spectrum, we've got people who can focus no problem for an hour and a half or 2 hours, but then they need to start getting some recovery. And if you think about sitting somewhere in between those two and beginning to identify where we sit, and I'll talk about naturally versus professionally and personally in a minute, but if you can understand where you sit on there, then you can work to that period. So when we say we're in a workshop and the facilitator is going to give us a break at 90 minutes, but maybe your optimal focus, like mine, is around 20 minutes. And I know after about 20 minutes, I need to do something to restore energy. So it might be drinking some water. It might just be quietly standing up in my chair or doing a stretch and then sit back down, and I'll have another 20 minutes in me. And so there are quiet ways which you can recover energy within a certain situation. There might be a meeting that's going on an hour and a half. But the hour and a half rule tends to be more of a average for how long you can maintain energy in a room with a group, with a collective. So when we're all together with lots of different people with lots of different optimal focus periods, we have to take responsibility, lots of self-responsibility for our own energy management. Does that make some sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And while I was listening to you, I have to admit my mind was also drifting into a visualization state, remembering my own corporate roles and day-to-days. And I have no doubt that will resonate with you, Alex. One meeting after the other, no breaks in between. You are sitting on a chair for the entire meeting. If somebody does get up, you're kind of almost looked at like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm having a stretch, right? I think in many companies that has changed now. But I sometimes wonder what needs to happen for the penny to drop and for people to understand that we all have different needs, in particular when it comes to our day-to-day work routines, which includes the culture of meetings, for example. And I would challenge the necessity of some of them as well. And it sounds like quite a few habit changes need to be made along the way.
Yeah. Really well identified. I have some, really strong views on organizations today, and I think we've hit this tipping point in our world, full stop, but our working world certainly, where the speed is just so fast. We are expected in a strange way to keep up with all of this incredible technology that's coming out, and I fully believe in the healthy use of technology and AI. But there's this shift that we're not really talking about, where humans have this expectation now that they can do what AI does. And instead of using AI to be a leveraging point for humans to slow down and utilize their brains really well, we're trying to kind of compete with the speed at which things are happening. And I don't think, maybe there's a bit of excitement in the air too with, well, what can this do and what can this allow me to do more of? But just as the wonderful Oliver Berkman says in his book, 4,000 Weeks, which I think is just phenomenal, every time we introduce a tool or something to help us be more productive, we don't reduce our stress. We actually increase it, because we increase our expectations of what we can get done. So, with the speed of the world, with our bizarre human need to keep up with the tools that we're creating and add more and more and more to our lives, there will be a requirement for organizations to be brave enough to say, actually, if we're to look into what humans are really good at and how the human brain works at its best to be its most innovative and creative and do that deep thinking and that deep work, then we actually need the opposite environment to all this technology. We need an environment where brains can have space and freedom and time to wander and daydream and all those things. And in order to do that, the leaders of these organizations will have to be quite brave, because they will probably have to rebel against what's feeling like the norm at the moment.
And sometimes you see the top leaders creating that norm and accelerating that norm even, right? So it's also a question around, can I influence it? As, for example, a middle manager or a leader below that. Is that right environment for me? What does my brain and my body really need to do the best work?
Yeah.
Because all of that has an impact on how we show up every single day as well. And I don't know about you, but I speak about that quite frequently on podcasts myself, that I had a phase in my life, a lot of traveling, the corporate environment, meeting after meeting, as I mentioned earlier on. And I did not look after my body at all, because I do not have time for this.
Yeah.
Now knowing that's where the energy actually can come from, or will come from. And I was just tense all the time. And I was micromanaging, and I was stepping in and just doing everything myself. And I did not create space for the brain to properly think and therefore respond instead of react. I think that sounds a bit harsher than it probably was, but I want to highlight the extreme. And I did not feel good about myself either. I really disliked myself. So it becomes a huge negative ripple effect, right? And that's not great. And I think you see a lot of these challenging behaviors in those pressure-some environments where there's nobody who says, let's stop and pause here. How do we really want to work together? And how are we going to achieve our goals realistically and sustainably?
Sustainably is such a key word there.
Yes.
Because we can achieve a lot of things, but then the question is, what happens after that? So when we've given everything towards a project or an outcome or whatever it might be, and we reach that target, what's happening in the business world in particular is that then there's a huge crash. There's a big come down. I see it in law firms a lot. They have a huge piece of work on and everybody gives everything. I see it in tech companies. They're launching a new product. You can see it almost everywhere. And instead of doing what we should be doing, which is building ourselves to a point where at the launch of the biggest moment in our career or our year, we should be feeling at our best. We're feeling like we're about to fall off the edge.
Yes.
And then this is the incredible connection between the brain and the body, as you're talking about, if you didn't take care of your body, it didn't make you feel that great in your mindset. But our body also has this ability that when we say to it, obviously subconsciously, I can't get sick, I've got to focus on what I'm doing and don't stop. We do that. But then how many people can admit the first day of holiday or the first day of my weekend, I get sick? Because you're finally relaxing the system and allowing it to recover from all the stress you've put it under. And getting sick is our body's way of repairing all the damage we've done. So it makes a lot of sense when you say, my mindset wasn't great. I didn't like myself very much because I wasn't taking care of my body. Yeah. And so it's very hard for your brain to give you positive messages when it's not being well treated.
And then we have all the cortisol streaming out of us and into our body, right? which isn't great either.
No.
You said earlier on we shouldn't really talk about time management as such in different words, but energy management. I love that. I absolutely love that. And you made this point around tools that make us more productive can really get in the way. Now, how can we help people shift their focus more on their energy management, less on those productive tools that seem nowadays so easy to be installed and implemented and used?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, the simplest approach is to think about and start paying attention to what times of the day is your energy at its best. For a lot of people, it is in the morning, maybe not first thing, but certainly within the first few hours of your day. And that's what we hear most is most common. But there are people who perk up around 11 or 12, and then there are people who are strangely afternoon people and some who are evening people. But noticing where your energy is at its best, that's the time that you tackle all the really hard stuff, the hardest thinking work, what we call your heavy work. So we get people to identify what's heavy work for them, takes a lot of energy, what's light work, what's moderate work. And your heavy stuff should be done at the time you've got the best energy, because you will conserve so much energy by doing it then than what we usually do is we plow through all the stuff that we're just ticking off, and then we lose all this energy, we have lowered energy, and we start tackling these big projects, and it's just becomes twice as hard for us to connect all the pieces of our mind to be able to deliver on that piece of work. And so not only does it take more time, but it drains our energy even more quickly. So we can conserve so much energy and therefore conserve so much time by doing the heaviest stuff when we've got the ability to do it. It's not always possible based on your work environment and how meetings are organized, but I love your question about, do we need this meeting? Do I need to be in this meeting? Those are good questions. And then also to ask your team, if you have the ability, is having a meeting at 8 or 9 a.m. on a Monday or Tuesday morning the best use of our energy? Because I would venture that 3/4 of that team probably have great energy then, and you're wasting it by just having a really light check-in meeting with your team. Those should go to lower energy times when you can relax, have a chat, make your plan for the week, but actually doing the hard work. That's what those times need to be reserved for.
And that goes back to the system again, doesn't it? I keep saying that over and over again. I see leaders, and I've worked with 3 different leadership teams in the last 2 weeks, so it's very fresh on my mind. The energy we felt in the room, entering the room, and the energy was depleted. It was, it felt
with
like
all
it,
3.
with 2 of them. And with one of them, I called it out very early on to say something shifted around the energy today that I am picking up. What's going on for you? Where are you right now? You know? And with another one, you noticed a few tensions, but the energy wasn't that challenging, but you noticed the busyness. Right?
Yeah.
And the word was mentioned quite often. We are all so busy and there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And then I try to put the systemic lens onto it to say, okay, does the system, and that's often being influenced by the key leaders of the business, does it allow for us to be courageous enough to say, is that the best use of our energy?
Yeah.
You know, am I going to say no to a meeting? Or he threw now the 5th priority onto my desk, not my words, was actually one of the participants who said it, on a Friday evening. What should I do? And these are those behaviors that literally normalize that we have a pressure environment and this is how we should operate and deplete our energy levels. And the challenge I hear about frequently is how to deal with that. I would love to say no more often, or challenge in the best way and influence, focusing on my energy. But at the moment, the only thing I can do is at least manage to go for my run in the morning, so I have some energy, and then falling into bed in the evening completely exhausted. And that's
yes, it's a common story. Look, if we're talking to leaders, my suggestion is always bring the conversation to the table around how are we prioritizing energy here? And is it a strong enough focus to support us to actually get done what we need to do? What kind of system have we got in place for us to monitor our individual and collective energy? And what are the values that we hold as an organization? Some people don't love the word values, so I just say just exchange it for standards. What standards are we holding ourselves to? And are those standards, do they include valuing people having enough energy to do this work really well? And sometimes I feel like, isn't this just so obvious? But that's anybody in a line of work, I think they tend to start feeling like, isn't this obvious? But the obvious piece for me, which isn't always clear in organizations, teams, and leadership groups, is if you don't have the energy and you're not taking care of that element of your humans, you will not get the best out of them. And it will cost you. It will cost you greatly, either in turnover or sickness or just poor productivity. So, yeah, it is. It can be a challenging one if you're dealing with lots of hierarchy. But if you are any member of that leadership team, I would say one of the most intelligent things you can do is have a conversation about, let's just look at how everyone's thinking about, talking about, and managing their energy at the moment. Because busy is, wow, what a common phrase these days, and has been for a long time, but everybody is busy. We will always be busy. There's not going to be a slowdown period. So we have to choose to decide, is it that we want to be busy or we want to be productive? And they're not the same thing. And busyness is a real cover up for poor productivity and poor systems and poor awareness. So if you're just overly busy, we certainly say in our business, you're probably not doing something well. And let's go back and look at what that is.
And you work within a system as well. And you have clients across the globe who you work with. So therefore, you need to build in systems, certain structure to be productive. But also in your role in particular, you've got to really show up at your best, right? With your clients, while, by the way, having 3 kids. As well, just because I haven't mentioned that yet. So from a business perspective, what have you and your colleagues implemented to make sure you can be productive and truly at your best? And how does that align to all other parts of your life?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there's many places to start there.
Yeah.
I would say one of my biggest learnings and pivotal moments in my career was when we had this business in London, but the same or very similar iteration of it. And it was about to move out of England after 11 years or so and to make the move back to New Zealand. Also was hoping to have a third child. So 2 little babies. I'm thinking about a third and running a big company. And I just had to call it. I had to admit that actually I wasn't walking my talk anymore. And I was finding it hard to get up on stage and work with organizations and leaders and be genuine about my energies in a great place. I think most mums you'll talk to with small children will say something similar. And so I actually stepped out of the business at that time. And it was a very, very hard decision to make. But I felt that I wasn't delivering the way that I should be. And I definitely couldn't ask others to do the same if I couldn't figure out how to make this work. So I was very fortunate that I could take a little bit of time. I just reduced right back. Instead of running a company, I just went and did one-on-one work, which I felt I could really manage. And then luckily for me, my beautiful business partner came along and said, I would like to keep this thing running and go into partnership and do it with you. And you can take all the time you need. So I had a wonderful opportunity to reset. I did have to say, I can't go back the way that I was. And I'm going to need some time for these children to get a little bit older. And, I was fortunate that she was happy to say, you take your time, you do what you need to, and you build back in the way that you want to. So I restructured and started setting really strong ground rules. Small things for me, and I know this isn't possible for everybody, but I made a pact with myself never to work a Friday while I had young children, that the Friday would always be for my youngest child, and I would spend time with them doing just stuff with them. And when the last one hit school age, I thought, oh, goodness, now what do I do? And I decided that would just be a day for me. And I could put that towards any sort of development, connection time, whatever it might be. And in my business, that works because it's a global business, and I'm often, as we are now, on a late evening call. And so it makes sense to me to give myself time back in other ways and other places. I have small habits. If I have a late call, I'll make sure not to have an early start with things that are going to require a lot of brain power. I don't do more than 2 evening calls a week. And then my personal routine, I wake up pretty early, and I've got a really dedicated meditation practice. I became a meditation teacher a few years ago because I have found it a pivotal backbone to energy. And I meditate almost every morning. I can't say every, but almost every. And I make sure that I get movement in and exercise. And then probably the biggest one that has become a personal commitment for me is I have learned how, probably through meditation, but how to breathe really, really well throughout the day, so that when my energy is reaching a point where it's not feeling sustainable, that I can settle my nervous system well and be able to think clearly. It doesn't mean that's always easy, but it is certainly something I work really closely with my clients on, learning how to show up in moments that are pressured and hard and require your brain when maybe you just don't have the facilities there to do the thinking that you need to do. So lots of personal discipline.
And I admire you for it, because one of the reasons is it represents that these small micro habits in their own community, so coming together, make some tremendous changes, right? While being okay with yourself to say, okay, maybe not every day. There are exceptions when it doesn't work. Well, I get back to it, and the next morning I'm sitting down to have a meditation again, or lie down for it. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. I wonder about boundary setting.
Yes, boundary setting is very important.
And with the family, aligning with your partner, but also with your business partner and with clients. And I'm so curious to hear as to whether this following experience and mindset and belief resonates with you. When you're shaped by some large corporate businesses, then, or I've been shaped by them, and I often have guilt that I don't respond quickly enough, or whatever it is. I'm just not quick enough, and I need to be on the ball. And to set boundaries has, for me, definitely been an ongoing challenge. To be okay with it might take 48 hours until I get back, or to have an out of office that literally says, I'm not out of office, but I will get back to you within a certain period of time. And not to feel that dark cloud hanging over me when I haven't replied right away, and to wait and just be okay to really focus on the first priorities. Yeah. And that's work in progress.
Yeah.
What's your experience?
Yeah, great one. I set those boundaries really early, and I can't tell you why. I just, it was something that I decided it's not going to be okay for. I don't want to be on emails late at night. I don't want any expectations set. I think also because a lot of the work we do is quite personal with people sometimes, and you can cross lines very easily where people want to reach out when they need support and help. But I have made a pretty strong commitment. If I got a text message from a client, which it would be rare, but if I did and it was past a certain time, I wouldn't reply. There would be very, very few occasions. I can actually only think of one where I would reply. And I did reply because that person was in real dire straits, and I kind of needed to get them a reference to somebody who could really help them. But other than that, there, in my mind, is no reason why they can't wait, certainly till the next morning. But when you're talking about, sometimes they just can't get to it within 24 hours or 48 hours. I know that from a neuroscience perspective, one of the most challenging things is people's the unknown and the ambiguity. So when they email you and there's this expectation, strange expectation we've built in our culture, that I should hear back from them immediately, that one of the nicest things for their brain is to get a response right away that says, I'm in workshops for 2 days. It will be hard for me to respond, but you can expect to hear from me between this time and this time. If it is urgent, you can reach me here. And what you've just done is you've alleviated that ambiguity in their brain, which reduces stress in them. And it actually also, you knowing that you've got that auto response on, even if it's not a workshop, even if you've just got 2 days of hard work and you're not going to get to the emails, put an autoresponder on, because it will alleviate your mind that people are getting a message so they know where you are and when, so you're managing their expectations, when they can expect to hear from you. And there's always an option if it was really important that they can get a hold of you another way. And what you find is over time, people come to really respect those boundaries and they feel grateful for them because it allows them to set boundaries too. So you're really doing yourself, but everybody, a favor by laying those out really clearly from the beginning. And I do say to people often, guilt is a bit of a useless feeling. All it does is make you feel bad, but doesn't change anything. So we really have to ask ourselves what's important. There's some wonderful examples of when technology really first started ramping up in terms of invading our personal lives with pagers, beepers, notifications, even just having email consistently. And there was just this view that you are never allowed to be out now. You always are in. You're always available. If someone calls your office and you're not there, they say, well, what's their cell phone number? There's never this, we shifted from allowing people to be out of the office to always being available.
Yes.
And as you say, there are very few boundaries anymore. If I might, there's some really amazing research. It actually came from an incredible guy in New Zealand, but he did it globally with all these incredible high performers in all sorts of different industries. And what he studied was not just high performers, but people who looked as though they had been sustainable high performers. They'd been working well for years. They had great outcomes. It could have been professional sports or army and defense, or it was in business. And he pulled out, I think, 12 of the most common traits in these sustainable high performers. And two that I really hung on to because I think they're incredible. One is they have a very distinct line between work and after work activity. And even if they work from home or in an unusual environment, they would have a ritual of some sort, like changing clothes or walking out of the house, around the block, coming back to signal the end of the workday. But it was very distinct. And then the second one that really stuck with me is they were able to articulate a relationship with their device. So they could say, my device is for XYZ. Whereas most of us just say, it's just my device. It's my phone. It's with me all the time. And as soon as you shift from this is just my phone, I'm always available, to this is the tool I use for these following things, you start to create boundaries that are really supportive for your energy. So I just love those two specific traits that I thought were really powerful.
100%. And again, at least the first one, I want to say fairly simple. I want to say that. Other people might say, yeah, you think so. And the second one, actually, as well, I nowadays see it as a challenge. So I have a very strong love-hate relationship with WhatsApp groups. So you may know it in New Zealand as well, right? There's a mom's group for this and there's a parents group for that. And then there's first school, second school, and so on. And then everything else. So every time somebody suggests to me, oh, should we have a WhatsApp group for something? I'm like, You can.
No.
I'm okay. Right? If you want my support, my input, more than happy to offer it to you. I do not need to be a part of another WhatsApp group.
Yeah,
Or
well done.
sometimes I would get WhatsApp messages from neighbors or so. And because I try Sunday to be kind of a non-digital day, only for emergencies, and to have a bit of a detox, I don't respond often at the weekend. Um, and they get really grumpy sometimes. Like, well, you're ignoring my messages. And I get the big haha and the jokes. And I'm like, well, I'm not ignoring it, but I just enjoy being off the phone for a while and really just even enjoy sharing it with others. In what you said earlier on, by me expressing boundaries, perhaps other people realize that it might be important to others and it might be a good thing for them to experiment with if they wish to, if they would think that's
Absolutely.
useful.
People can feel a little bit jealous that, oh wow, you've managed to create boundaries here. That's
Yes.
how do I do that? And then they get curious. So I think you really do. It's a service to other people to say I'm not available all the time. Some of my clients put in a note on the bottom of their emails that say I only check email twice a day. So
Mm,
you'll hear from me between this time and this time, or please don't expect an immediate response.
mm,
And I think again, you're just settling people's mind that, why haven't I heard from them?
mm.
And your friends and your colleagues and whoever connects with you across the weekend will become comfortable with, well, it's unlikely that we'll hear from Kathleen on a
Mm.
Sunday.
Yeah. And I would really love to invite people to pick and choose some of these examples that you've provided, I've provided, and experiment with them or with a different version of them.
Yeah.
Because it is about starting small, isn't it? I
Yeah.
actually had an experience yesterday, worked face to face with a group of people, and traveled back on the train and then had to take the tube in London. And I ran the experiment spontaneously for myself to just be still. So I stood
Mm,
on the tube and I was just watching around, and it felt so easy to take the phone out,
mm,
right? And to do something on the phone. But
mm.
I
It's
just
instinctive,
looked.
isn't it?
It is. It
Mm.
is. And I looked around and I could not find anybody. Yeah, I could find one child who was not on the phone. And everybody
Quite
else
young.
was.
Yeah.
And I wonder as to whether it has become so habitual for us to fill even the spaces of potential stillness that we could have with
Absolutely.
something to fall back into busyness. What's your
Yeah.
perspective and observation?
And my observation is exactly the same. One of my favorite times, so we spend more time in the car here than we do in London. We spend more time in the train. But when I'm driving and I stop at a traffic light and I watch people walk up and wait at the crossing, and as soon as they stop at the crossing, they pull a phone out, if it's not already out in their hand already, they pull it out of their pocket and they can't. People are finding it challenging to stand still for 20 seconds and not reach for something to distract them. It's you see it when people are waiting in line for ordering their coffees or whatever it might be, and it is. And I certainly notice it myself. There's just a strong instinct to reach for it to fill space. But I have experimented, and it was a some time ago now. Maybe thinking back, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I went on a wonderful retreat. It was a really special experience. And the offer at the beginning of 7 days was, if you would like to, you can turn your phone in and leave it at the front desk um, for the 7 days. And I thought, oh, this is nerve wracking. I've got a family at home. And so I actually called my husband. I said, I'd really like to do this. If you need anything, you can call the front desk and they will find me. And he said, okay, you do that. And for 7 days, I had no phone at all. And probably 2 days of it, I spent with the strangest feeling, like I was missing something or I was forgetting something or I needed. And it was just this habit that had formed with my mind looking to fill something. And often we misread that as being more productive. What's the one thing I could be doing right now? I could be ordering something that I needed for the home, paying something that I needed to pay for the children, um, answering a work email, putting some time into this concept. It could have been any number of things that we do on these devices. But after about 2 days, that feeling settled down, and eventually it went away. And I felt so spacious and so calm. And it was just the most enjoyable experience. When I got my phone back, I deleted all my social media. I turned off all my notifications, and I decided to ease back only what I really needed. And look, I would say I've found probably a balance again, but am constantly reminding myself that, and we know this from a neuroscience perspective as well, if our brain is going to do all the amazing things we want it to do, it needs space, it needs quiet time, it needs to wander and daydream. And all of the best ideas that have ever come in history have not been when we have filled every little second of our mind with, information, but when people have been restful. I was in a strategy week earlier this year with a client, and we looked at how they can be more creative. And we first just chatted about, when do your best ideas come? When do you just have those moments? And they were all, I was on a run, I was in the bath, I was showering, I was asleep actually, and I woke up, or as I was drifting off to sleep. They were never, or very, very rarely. I was in a boardroom with 15 people. We were under a massive amount of pressure. I had my phone and my computer, and I came up with this amazing idea. Almost never. So we talked about why that is, and how the creative elements of the brain need to be calm and relaxed, and they need to be free of stress, or at least a certain amount of stress. And that's when the synapses in your brain connect differently. So all of these things that we have experienced in our lives are floating around in our brain, and great ideas and innovation come when a few of them connect that maybe hadn't connected before. But we have to be in a calm state for that to happen. So I completely agree with what you're observing. It is probably the number one topic people want to talk about when we talk about continuous partial attention, focus times, distraction, and how to get the most out of people. Because there is a genuine sense of frustration out there about, how do I change this in my life? How do I change it in my family life and my working life? Because I don't think people are enjoying it. They can't put their finger on what they're not enjoying about it. But it's not a great experience at the moment. We are so full that we're not actually absorbing the wonderful things that are around us.
I feel already calmer just listening to you. What does your new balance look like that you spoke about earlier, from deleting social media apps of your phone, for example? Where are you now with it all?
Now, so yes, I have no notifications that come up on my phone. I put notifications on client meetings just in case for some reason I've overlooked something that's useful. The WhatsApp question is a really good one. I hide all those notifications, and because I find most of those I tend to be social or around the children, and I allocate time at the end of the day to just check what's really important on those, and quite often very little. It's often just a lot of conversation and chat. So just find what's really important. WhatsApp does ask me quite regularly would I like to turn on my notifications because I'm missing a lot. And I say, no, thank you. So the only ones I get are, a missed phone call, a text message, or calendar invites from clients. And and my emails are on my phone, but I really try not to check them there unless there's some reason that I need to. If I'm out in the city and I can't find a client or something, I've got to look something up. But otherwise, emails reserved for being on the computer. That's sort of how I manage what's coming in. I also try not to have my phone on my desk when I'm working or when I'm in a big deep dive on something. And I work with clients a lot to help them understand that even your phone turned off or upside down or on silent on your desk, if you can see it and you can reach it, even if it's in the same room as you, that drastically reduces your productivity, because your subconscious mind, people will say, I don't think that. Yeah, it's your subconscious mind is constantly flicking back and forward to, I know there could be something there that I might find interesting or need to check or want to have a look at. And that little bit of distraction is taking away your ability to focus. And then it takes you at least 30 seconds to come back again, deeply focus on what you were doing. Now, if you add up all those little 30-second interruptions all day, that's a huge amount of time that you've lost and ability to focus, and not to mention the cognitive drain. So yeah, when I first walk into meeting rooms, I did this yesterday with, I was in with High Performance Sport New Zealand and their coaches, and I said, hi, can you just, if you've got a phone on the desk in front of you, could you lift it up? And everybody holds up their phone and they say, lovely. And it was pretty much the whole room. I said, could you please stand up and go and move the phone somewhere in the room where you can't see it and you can't reach it? So be that in your bag or over on another table. And people are kind of looking at me, and I say, I'm really sorry if this is making you uncomfortable or if it's going to make you uncomfortable over the next period, but I'll explain why as we go through. And I don't tell them anything for the first half of the workshop. But when we finally get there, I can say, how many people really felt like they needed to check their phone? And I do always ask at the beginning, is there any emergency calls you might be expecting or any reason someone needs a phone? And occasionally someone will say yes, but that is very rare. And we'll reflect on the feelings they were having. Like, oh yeah, I was finding it really strange not to be able to just touch my screen and check what was on there, or even have a wee flick through or whatever it might have been. But then some of them noticed actually felt really good. I felt really present and able to absorb what we're talking about. So, when we're talking about things people can try, experiment with it. See if you can put it away for a little while. If you can't do it while you're working because you're in the type of job that people need to get a hold of you regularly, there's very few jobs like that, but they do exist. Try it on a Saturday or a Sunday, as you're trying to do as well. Put it away and don't touch it. And just see what the day is like. See how it unfolds. See where your presence is and your attention. And largely see how your energy evolves through the day.
Energy and therefore your emotions. And that's no news what I'm going to say. And there's a lot of research around it as well, that when we stop scrolling, just mindless scrolling, looking too often at social media channels and start to compare ourselves, we actually start to feel happy and more confident in ourselves again. Right? Because the focus is more internal and more around creating awareness for ourselves and not around everything else around us. And that's for me a huge argument to reduce the amount of scrolling and constantly looking at data of others.
Yeah. And we're living in this, it's a very big conversation, as you know, but this dopamine poor economy now that we have completely given away our dopamine to all these silly little things. So dopamine is the motivational hormone. And I think it's quite good to remember, people think of it as the feel-good hormone. And so it's more about motivation. When we don't have it, it reduces our motivation. And if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is read the news, check your phone, have a quick look on social media or even your emails, you're just pouring out some of the dopamine that was going to be available to you that day. So no wonder we're seeing people find it harder to feel energized and motivated and driven by the same things they used to be. We're giving away this amazing tool that we have, this amazing resource we have in our bodies. And so I talk to people a lot about protecting that. I love your view of, when you're scrolling, you're comparing. And I think my personal reflection was when I had a personal Instagram account, it was really positive, and it was largely because we lived overseas and we have family all around the world and friends, and it was a lovely way to share with them what was happening in our lives. But I started to notice that when I was taking photos of our family, I was thinking about them through the lens of what other people would see. So it was less about capturing these great moments for our family, and I was capturing them for other people. And, how does this sum up best what we're doing at the moment and what we're going through? And I thought, wow, what a strange lens to look at our family through. And when I stopped, I noticed, firstly, I took less pictures, which could be a good or a bad thing. But actually, when I did take pictures, they were genuinely because I wanted to capture something for us. Um, and yes, I definitely had friends. I actually got a few messages from people when I went off social media saying, "Is everything all right?" We've noticed, and I thought that was interesting. If you're not posting, something must not be right, because, of course, people only post the good things. And I said, yes, I've just decided this is not the healthiest space. And I created a little group for my closest friends and family who wanted to see our updates. And I said, I'll just put on some updates here. No need to comment, or not a Instagram page, but a private photo book. And that's been a beautiful way to stay connected, but without the comparison.
Sounds nourishing and lovely. That would be
We've
right
got to
up
try
my
these
street.
things. Yeah.
Yes.
I think people don't give it a try enough.
We got to try these things, and that means we've got to be aware, first of all, of, something doesn't feel quite right, as you just described it, right? I'm taking pictures more for others and their lens than ours. And that, again, requires space.
Yeah. And experimentation. I liken it sometimes to when we're trying to change the way that we eat, and something's not right in our body, it doesn't feel right. And then, lots of people experiment with going gluten-free. But sometimes you don't know that something's affecting you until you take it away. And that's why I say, when it comes to your relationship with your phone and even your emails and the way that you set yourself up, try experimenting for short periods, because you may not realize what it's doing to you until you take it away. We think, oh, I'm fine. I hear people all the time say, oh, a little bit of scrolling, I really like it. It's a nice release for me. And I said, well, if you took it away though, what would that be like? Because chances are it's, very, very rare that somebody is actually getting energy from scrolling. There are elements about it that are positive, seeing beautiful things in your friends and family's lives. But there's often, the algorithms are designed to capture your attention, to hold you, to make you feel like you need more, want more. Yeah. This tool used to be a tool that we got to use, and now we have become the tool that it gets to use.
Yeah, and if we build a bridge again to firms, companies, then, you talked about tech early on, or you mentioned tech briefly. You have Slack, you have Teams, so Microsoft Teams. Then you have all sorts of product management or project management tools that are available, Asana and Monday and whatnot. And then you have WhatsApp and so on. So constant pinging basically around you. And I do get, and when I would say to leaders, well, try to remove your notifications, they look at me like, okay, how am I going to do that? How am I supposed to do that? And it is a step-by-step process to do it. But I want to cheekily say as well, you need to want to do it, because you see the benefit, or you can at least envisage it. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to want to. And I just say, keep questioning, keep asking. Go to your teams and say, is this working for us? Who's finding this overwhelming? What would be a better way for us to communicate? And what boundaries could we put in place around the system? So, if you've got Slack notifications coming through, what are the boundaries? And I worked with a team recently who they just had never communicated with each other. Okay, if I do get a message, maybe from someone more senior through Slack, but it's after 6:00 at night, what is my obligation and expectation to reply? And anybody junior would say, oh, I feel like I have to. And the senior managers would say, oh, no, we just needed to get it off, get it out for the day. We don't expect a reply. But if you haven't had that conversation, then there's no boundary and no expectation. So it's just setting some guidelines, even within the systems that we've got and the tools we've got for communication, about about those expectations and create cultural norms around how do we do communication in this company. So keep asking the questions of your teams, and it doesn't have to be a hard question. It can just be, is this working for everybody? And not just am I getting my message across, but am I energetically, is this working? Are we coping with the amount of communication that we're getting?
You didn't mention the word stillness earlier on, but you mentioned your habit of meditating nearly every morning. And that creates stillness, right? I mean, in my case, sometimes my thoughts wander around like crazy little buggers, but usually I feel more still and calm afterwards, and in particular in combination with proper attention to breathing. And you highlighted how important it is for the brain to have moments of stillness, to daydream. I loved it when you used that word, and to create space. Now, again, what are some of those moments people can create in their, let's stick with the busy environments, to daydream, to have space, and to be still?
Yeah. I love the word stillness. I love being still. What I love about stillness, and maybe meditation is kind of an interesting place to start, is when we're physically still as well, it allows us to be more introspective. Sometimes we can be walking and not looking at, let's say we don't have our phone and we're on a walk and we're quiet. That can be a lovely way to be introspective as well. But it's a different sort of introspective than when you actually still the whole body. Because when you still the whole body, you start to become aware of the most interesting things. You become aware of physical sensation, potentially sensation that you weren't aware was sitting in your body. You become aware of how sensation moves in and out of the body and around the body. It doesn't just stay in one place. And creating a practice around stillness, because we have so little of it. I mean, we do a lot of sitting in our cultures, right? But it's not usually very still. There's always something going through our mind or in our hands and looking at our phones. So the total stillness allows us to, one, become aware of the body, but two, become a better observer of the mind. And when we can be still, observing the mind allows us to see how crazy our thoughts can be, and how quick and automated and how much rubbish flies through our minds, as you say, those crazy little buggers. And I do encourage people to think about their thoughts as separate from them. They are not you. They are happening. But if you can observe them, then you're not them. So observing our thoughts is a really big step in becoming self-aware enough or insightful enough to see that our thoughts can be really irrational. And if we don't become able to observe our thoughts, we have no ability, no chance of being able to change the thoughts in a way that are more useful to us. So when people talk about mindset and how do I get into a high-performing mindset and a positive mindset and see opportunity and all those sorts of things, they say, well, you first have to become aware of what mindset you're in now. And the best way to do that is to get still and observe. And the more you practice that, the more you become able to do that when you're not still, when you're moving through your day and things are happening and you start to notice, oh gosh, that wasn't a very useful way to think about things. And wow, I was really negative when I went into the room. If you never have any stillness, you have a much harder time to capture yourself, to catch yourself moving into a certain state of mind. And of course, one of the greatest transitions and we can make in mindset is to be able to see the thought, change the thought to something more useful, and then make that become the new neural pathway we've created so that we go more regularly and more quickly to that more useful thought. I'm careful not to say the more positive thought, but the more useful thought. We tend to have a lot of very unuseful ones. So yes, I really believe in stillness, and just stopping sometimes, even if it's for 20 seconds or 30 seconds and saying, oof, okay, let's just get really still. Let's notice what's happening in my body. Let's notice my heart rate. My nervous system is it heightened. And what could I be doing to reduce that energy so that I can now think clearly again?
Really appreciate you differentiating positive thought from a more useful thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a teeny tiny aha moment for me to say, yeah, even if you say, I need to get to a more positive thought, immediately there's a need, there's an ambition, there's something you've got to achieve. And that means potentially additional pressure. And more useful is, okay, what feels literally more useful? What feels all right or better at this stage? Whatever it is. There is more ease underneath those words.
Yeah, what's going to create a more easeful state for me? Yeah, oh, I'm glad that landed. Yeah, language is really powerful. So understanding, what language is going to support me best in the way that I talk to myself, which is largely what we're doing, or about the situation. And instead of, I think there is a bit of pushback now around being overly positive. Are we so overly positive sometimes that we actually miss that there is challenge and things are hard? And sometimes it is much more useful to acknowledge this is hard. I am under stress and under pressure. And now what choices do I have? When we just completely ignore that there is stress and pressure that's maybe unusual amounts of it, then when we don't have any tools available to us to work through that, we can't override that just by being overly positive. But there were some great examples at the moment. A wonderful Stanford professor named Alia Crum did a great article on understanding that stress can be really, really positive. But the thing that these amazing Olympians are doing at the moment is they acknowledge, I'm under stress. This is a big moment. And this big moment is going to be stressful because it matters and because I care. And so when you acknowledge it, and then you acknowledge that you care and that's why it's happening, then you get to choose, am I going to utilize this stress to move me forward and do something amazing? Or am I going to let it completely squash me and what I'm doing? So harnessing stress in a positive way, in a useful way, is really, really important.
I agree with you. And I had a smile on my lips because I saw, I don't think it was deep research based. So an article that was based on interviews with Olympians, with the athletes, as well as some psychologists. And they were asking the question, how come all the condoms were gone already and they were all used up that they provide in the homes of the athletes? Now, that's why I was smiling, right? But I thought from a psychology perspective, that was interesting, right? What lies behind it? And it was exactly what you said, that stress has built up so strongly and detention inside their bodies that they had held on to for months and months of preparation, of training, of getting into that spirit. And then there was a literal release. And one of the releases was absolutely to do the sport and hopefully be successful, but also to have sexual activity. And they ran out of condoms there.
Oh my goodness.
So that's quite a story.
I have not seen this article. That is quite a story. And amazing that they were sharing that with the public. But
yes. Some of them,
I mean, positive release, right?
It's just one of the releases, right, of physical activity. Oxytocin probably being shared as well. And that was a way to deal with the stress.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is a new insight into the Olympians, but...
Well, now that they have all returned, getting back to normality.
Safely.
I found that incredibly interesting. And that's not the final the final story to close this conversation with. I'm going to hand over the final part to you. You have shared so many beautiful insights and some great nuggets into how to manage our energy, how to create moments of stillness, and being more aware of our neuroscience and our somatic experiences as well. So I wonder if there is a final top tip, a final nugget that you can and want to share with our audience.
Oof. My support, probably I'll go back to the beginning and what we talked about as, what would be the quickest and easiest way to support yourself, to reduce your cognitive drain and have more energy. And I would just come back to wherever you can, reduce the distraction that you have right now. Stay focused for your optimal focus period on something. Take away interruption in terms of phone messaging and the number of tabs you've got open, and just bring yourself into being aware of your present situation. And the more present you can be, the more your body will remain calm and your nervous system will be able to manage what's happening in front of you. And then the clearer you'll be able to think and make decisions. So I would just come back to whatever way you can find to bring presence more readily into your life. That might be through stillness, it might be through breath work, it might be through meditation, it might be through simply feeling your feet on the ground or your bottom in a seat, just feeling where you are. The more that you will be able to become aware of your energy levels and what supports you. And that will make a phenomenal difference in the way that you show up in all aspects of your life as a leader, as a human, and your ability to do the work you want to do. So that would be where I would leave people.
Thank you so, so much. And Alex, it's been fascinating talking to you. And I know it's 10 o'clock now, your time. So getting ready for bed soon. And your calm and your presence are just really, really impactful. So thank you so much for sharing it with us all here today.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's a real honor and privilege to get to share it and to be here and chatting with you. And thank you for asking phenomenal questions of people and creating a platform that lots and lots of people can learn from.
That's really the final part. Where can people find you, connect with you, the work you do?
Yeah. Everything that we're doing is on our website, www.nextevolutionperformance.com. You can find lots of articles and information and links to great things. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Alexandra Davids. And we're doing some fun stuff at the moment. We run free webinars every month that are called 2020. So they're 20 minutes on a particular neuroscience and leadership topic and 20 minutes of open Q&A. People join from all over the globe. So if you sign up on our website and you can't make it because of your time zone for some reason, you'll get a recording. But it's a great way to just get a little hit once a month of some neuroscience and leadership. And love to see some people there.
Join Alex and her colleagues. I would highly recommend it, in particular if this episode has resonated with you. Before I'm going to close our conversation, I am really inviting all of you to think about what's a small first step you can take to create more presence, impact, simply awareness in your body for yourself, not for anybody else, but for yourself. And it would be wonderful if you let us know and the impact they might have had on you and your performance too. And with that, I'm going to say, please take good care of yourselves. Make sure you do manage your energy well, because it's important for you and probably your others, like your loved ones, for example. And I'm going to say thank you again, Alex. It's been wonderful to have you.